shell is simultaneously light and heavy.
And then I'll give another 4 to 5 minutes. I'll begin to share my
The
screen.
Murex Dr.
Wow.
Gephardt keeps on his desk and entertains the hollow spines, the ridged walls, the deep entrance. It's a forest of spikes and decaying textures. It's a kingdom. Her hands move ceaselessly, gathering, probing, testing. The breast feathers of a stuffed and mounted chickadee are impossibly soft. The pollen at the tips of tulip anthers is not so much powder as it is tiny balls of oil. To really touch something, she is learning. The bark of the sycamore tree in the gardens, a pinned stag beetle in the Department of Etymology, the exquisitely polished interior of a scallop shell in Dr. Gephardt's workshop, is to love it. At home in the evenings, her father stows their shoes in the same cupboard, hangs their coats on the same hooks. Marie-Laure crosses 6 evenly spaced friction strips on the kitchen tiles to reach the table. She follows a strand of twine he has threaded from the table to the toilet. He serves dinner on a round plate and describes the locations of different foods by the hands of the clock. Potatoes at 6 o'clock, ma chérie. Mushrooms at
Call us now.
Teresa, I don't have any sound. Has it started?
No, I can hear you. So, no, we're just waiting, giving it a few more minutes, another minute, and then I'll begin.
Oh, okay. I thought it was my device. Thank you.
No. You're okay, Yvonne.
Okay, thank you.
So how many of you saw the movie, The Titanic?
What we do, raise our hand?
I think everybody
You could.
Yes.
Everybody did?
Yes, we
Yeah, I
did.
saw it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not telling you anything new then.
Right, multiple versions of the movies.
Ah, okay, multiple versions. I see, Joyce, you raised your hand.
Oh, what makes your version the version that's it? Where did you get your information to make it know that there is a secret?
Well, I found it with research. Again, I'm only going by what I could find online. I did quite a few hours of research, and I'm going to show you a short, just a few minutes of a video where they really actually breaking it down as to what they think happened, which was not illustrated in the actual movie.
Oh, so they weren't all drunk and didn't pay attention to the warnings, huh?
And it's more than that. It's more than that. It's again hiding the truth of what really happened, or shifting the blame, not facing things that should have happened or taken place.
Were they ever sued by any of the people who were left behind or relatives of the people who got killed?
I can't answer to that, except I didn't find any evidence during my research that anything took place, because they kind of just blamed it on the iceberg. You know, the iceberg did it.
Yeah, the iceberg they chose to ignore. They knew it was there. They got plenty of warning.
And there's also some other stuff.
Yeah,
we're gonna learn
they took
today.
a gamble, Teresa. They took a gamble.
Yeah, there's some other stuff they're going to learn today. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
So it should have never set sail. Right, the ship that should have never set sail, because they knew before they took that out on that water, they knew something was wrong. But let's find out. So they called it what? The unsinkable. They said, if I read correctly, it says, not even God can sink the ship.
And
That's
that was
what
that was dangerous for them to even say that. When you pull God and He's gonna show you something. All right, I'm quiet. I'm going mute.
So, you know, that's it. So the Titanic was a British luxury steamship that sank in the early hours of April 15, 1921, after striking an iceberg, leading to the deaths of what? More than 1,500 passengers and crew. Of the 2,240 passengers and crew on board, more than 150 lost their lives in the disaster. So the building of the, and I think the RMS starts for the Royal Majesty Services. That's what it stands for. Was the product of an intense competition among rival shipping lines in the first half of the 20th century. In particular, the White Star Line found itself in a battle for steamship primacy with Cunard, a venerable British firm, venerable British firm with two standout ships that ranked among the most sophisticated and luxurious of the time. Let me get somebody in, okay. So you can see this is an actual image of it where it was being constructed. The Titanic. So the immense hull, once they've completed it, they hauled it out, right? And they made their slipways into the river Langan in Belfast, and that's Ireland. More than 100 people attended the launching, which took just about over a minute and went off without a hitch. The hull was immediately towed to a mammoth fitting out dock where thousands of workers would spend most of the next year building the ship's deck, constructing her lavish interiors, and installing the 29 giant boilers that would power her two main steam engines. So she's going to have two steam engines. All right. So these were kind of the passengers that I only took some images of some of them. The Titanic created a stir when it departed for its maiden voyage from Southampton, England. After it stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, the ship set sail for New York with the 2,000 plus passengers and crew. The expression then used the ship industry, usually, or souls they call it, connected with sinking a ship on board. So this is an image of a family, pretty large family for back in that day, and the whole complete family was on board that ship. Mom, dad, and how many kids? 6 kids, all boarded. There's another one. As befitting as the first transatlantic crossing of the world's most celebrated ship, many of these souls were high-ranking officials, wealthy industrialists, dignitaries, and celebrities. First and foremost was the White Star's director, J. Bruce Ismay, accompanied by Thomas Andrew, the ship's builder from Harland and Wolff. So we have a picture here of this White Star manager, Director Bruce Ismay. Well, you could see it. All right, but guess who was supposed to get on it but never did? Was JP Morgan, who we all know is from Morgan and Chase right now. They're saying that who had been It says the absence was the financer, JP Morgan, right? They financed the ship, whose International Mercantile Marine Shipping Trust controlled the White Star Line, who had selected Ismay as a company officer. Morgan had planned to join his associates on the Titanic, but canceled at the last minute when some business matters delayed him. So there you go. So not all disappointments, right, are bad. For whatever reason, he got delayed, he never got on it. The wealthiest passengers, the first class ones, like John Jacob Astor IV, heir to the Astor family fortune, who had made waves a year earlier by marrying an 18-year-old Madeline Talmadge Force, a young woman 29 years his junior, shortly after divorcing his first wife. They were on board. Now, Macy's Isidore Struss, another notable passengers included the elderly owner of Macy's and his wife, Ida. Okay. Then we have the industrialist Benjamin Guggenheim, accompanied by his mistress, valet, and chauffeur, and widow and heiress Margaret Molly Brown, who would earn her nickname, the unsinkable Molly Brown, by helping to maintain calm and order while the lifeboats were being loaded and boosting the ship of her fellow survivors. So that in lots of employees, the employees attending to this collection of first class luminaries were mostly traveling second class, along with academics, tourists, journalists, and others who would enjoy a level of service and accommodation equivalent to first class on most other ships. So they're saying the second class here was basically very much similar to first class on other ships. So the employees actually traveled in luxury, they're saying. The third class passengers, but by far the largest of the group, more than 700, exceeding other two levels combined. Some had paid what? Less than $20 to make the crossing. It was the third class that was the major source of profit for shipping lines like the White Star. And the Titanic was designed to offer these passengers accommodations and amenities superior to those found in third class on any other ship of that era. So this is how the dining and the sleeping and dining quarters looked. These are the actual images from there. Looks to me very luxurious for that time. The dining style, the first class passengers in the Titanic were in lap of luxury aboard. The ship was 883-foot ship. According to the Ultimate Titanic, their dining room was an impressive 114-foot room and filled with the width of the ship. It had to be lavish to seat a capacity of 532 passengers at one sitting. Menus that survived the record show diners consisted of what? 10 courses per meal, 10 courses per meal. All right, here's some other images that I found. This is what the stairway looked like. I guess they even had areas that you can shop on board the ship. Okay, they're saying, considering that the Titanic, look how much it cost, $7.5 million to build way back in 1912, that's about $180 million today. A first class ticket aboard the ship set passengers back a pretty penny. Lots of them reports that these tickets cost up to $2,560 at the time. The modern equivalent of which would exceed what? $61,000. So they paid, like in today's money, $61,000 to board the ship, first class, that is, of course. And they would have, it would include 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, 2 wardrobes, and a bathroom. They would get for $61,000. Then there's the other class, the third class. They weren't treated nearly as well as those traveling in first class decks. Their small cabins, which often consisted of bunk beds and simple wash basins, were expected to hold up to 10 passengers. Much of the third class level consisted of immigrants making their way to the United States, including families. The children would play games on the poop deck, read about how one family was supposed to travel on the Titanic, but a last-minute decision saved their lives. So the ship set sail. April 10th was not without some oddities. A small coal fire was discovered in one of her bunkers, the ship, an alarming but not uncommon occurrence on steamships of the day. Stokers hosted down the smoldering coal and shoveled it aside to reach the base of the blaze. So the fire began. After assessing the situation, the captain and the chief engineer concluded that it was unlikely it had caused any damage that could affect the hull structure, and the stokers were ordered to continue controlling the fire. This is what it looked like. This is a true image of it. All right, according to a theory put forth by a small number of Titanic experts, the fire became uncontrollable after the ship left Southampton, forcing the crew to attempt a full-speed crossing, moving at such a fast pace they were unable to avoid a fatal collision with the iceberg. So the fire was started way before they left, and they basically kind of like pretended that it wasn't there. They ignored it to a certain extent. On April 14, after 4 days of uneventful sailing, the Titanic reached sporadic reports of ice from other ships, but she was sailing on calm seas under a moonless, clear sky. Sensing no collision, the lookouts were relieved. They had no idea that the iceberg had a jagged underwater spur, which slashed 300-foot gash in the hull below the ship's waterline. At least that's how they're telling the story. By the time the captain had toured the damaged area with Harlem and Wolf Thomas Andrew, 5 compartments were already filling with seawater, and the bow of the doomed ship was alarmingly pitched downward, allowing seawater to pour from one bulkhead into the neighboring compartment. Andrew did a quick calculation and estimated that the Titanic might remain afloat for an hour and a half, perhaps slightly more. At that point, the captain, who had already instructed his wireless operator to call for help, ordered the lifeboats to be loaded. Okay, so a little more than an hour after contact with the iceberg, a largely disorganized and haphazard evacuation began with the lowering of the first lifeboat. The craft was designed to hold 65 people. It left with what? Only 28 aboard. So it wasn't well organized. They weren't prepared. Tragically, this was to be the norm. During the confusion and chaos during the precious hours before the Titanic plunged into the sea, nearly every lifeboat would be launched woefully underfilled, some with only a handful of passengers. Women and children first. Back in that day, the law of the sea, that was the rule. In compliance with the law of the sea, women and children boarded the boats first. Only when there were no women or children nearby were men permitted to board. Yet many of the victims were in fact women and children, the result of the disorderly procedures that failed to get them to the lifeboats in the first place. Exceeding Andrew's prediction, Titanic stubbornly stayed afloat for close to what? 3 hours. Those hours witnessed acts of craven cowardice and extraordinary bravery, both of them, I guess. All right, so hundreds of human dramas unfolded between order to load the lifeboats and the ship's final plunge. Men saw off wives and children, families were separated in confusion, and selfless individuals gave up their spots to remain with loved ones or allow a more vulnerable passenger to escape. In the end, 706 people survived the sinking of the Titanic. And this was the newspaper here, as you can see. It says, on board, only 675, mostly women and children saved. All right, so the ship most hilarious passengers each responded to the circumstances with conduct that has become an integral part of the Titanic legend. Esme, the White Star managing director, helped load some of the boats and later stepped onto a collapsible as it was being lowered. Wow, although no women or children were in the vicinity when he abandoned ship, he would never live down the agony of surviving the disaster while so many others perished. So they're saying Esme, who was the one of the very important persons on the ship, he decided, even though he was given the option to board on lifeboats, he decided he couldn't handle it, so he allowed others to get on board the lifeboat. Here's an image here I have of the Titanic chief designer, Thomas Andrew. He was last seen on the first class smoking room, staring blankly at a painting of a ship on the wall. Astor deposited his wife, Magdalene, into a lifeboat and remarking that she was pregnant, asked if he could accompany her. Refused entry, he managed to kiss her goodbye just before the boat was lowered away. Look at that. He's the one who designed it, and he doesn't want to go down with it. He's, coming up with some, excuse that his wife was pregnant, but they told him no. Okay, so what really happened here? Let's look at what researchers say. Thomas Andrew, the Titanic's head designer, reported that his inspection revealed flooding in at least 5 of the Titanic's 60 water tight compartments. While the ship could have stayed afloat with up to 4 flooded compartments, depending on their location, 5 tipped into catastrophic territory. At roughly midnight, Andrew reportedly told Smith the Titanic could last another 60 to 90 minutes. So there's an image here of the different compartments that were filled up with water. All right, so among those was Benjamin Guggenheim and his valet. He decided that he was going to return to his room, and he changed into formal evening wear. Emerging onto the deck, he famously declared, "We are dressed in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen." And that's an image of him. Also, the article found saying that he said the late Benjamin Guggenheim, who went down with the Titanic, left a bequest of $5,000 to the Colored Orphan Asylum in New York City. So he obviously had a heart. Okay, so the Titanic, nearly perpendicular with many of her lights still aglow, finally dove beneath the ocean surface at 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912. Throughout the morning, there's in Cunard's Carpathia, after receiving the Titanic's distress call at midnight and steaming at full speed while dodging ice floats all night, rounded up all of the lifeboats. They contained only 705. So they did get, another ship came in and rescued those in the lifeboats. So the captain, E.J. Smith was, they're saying at 11:40 p.m. on that Sunday, April 14, 1912, with this, and said that he appeared on the bridge of the Titanic just moments later, asking what the storage ship making its maiden voyage across the Titanic had struck. He wasn't even aware of what's going on. So began the worst night of Edward John Smith's otherwise charmed life. In more than 40 years at sea, he had rarely been involved in an accident and never had an accountable for one. Now he was about to preside over one of the worst sea disasters of all time. In a matter of hours, more than 1,500 passengers and crew would be dead, including Smith. So he went down, the captain went down with the ship. And that's an image of him there. All right, so the question is, should the ship ever be sailed? Should it have even gone on, knowing that there was fire taking place in several of the cabin containers below? They're saying the Titanic darkest secret that helped the ship sink exposed. They said the Titanic owners had made a shortcut that created the perfect storm leading to the sinking of the vessel, according to claims by a researcher that had been dubbed its dark secret. So this is a camera, as you can see, they went down to the ocean bottom and took an actual image of it, which is where it's sitting right now in the Atlantic. And so they're saying some have refused to accept the official story, okay? They're saying that both the British and US carrying out inquiries into the accident, while conspiracy theories claim Titanic was switched with its near identical sister ship, the Olympic, which crashed a year earlier in an elaborate insurance scam. Well, I don't know how true that is, but the video you're going to watch at the end talks about that. While that possibility may have been ruled out, there are other questions over an apparent money-saving tactics taken by owners. They're saying that a presenter by the name of Richard Mitchley said in 2011, the White Star Company was losing money by the day and hurt. To add to the situation, Britain was in the grip of a national coal strike. So these are all the theories that are coming up with as what really happened. The Titanic would need around 6,000 tons of coals for its voyage to New York. And the only way to get this was to take it out of other liners like the Oceanic and New York. So they're going to take, I don't understand what happened there. They needed 6,000 tons of coal and they didn't have it. This meant double handling of the coal, a very dirty and laborious business. In the midst of the mayhem, the Titanic kept a dark secret that the coal in the bottom of the bunker, number 6, was on fire. So they were losing coal. And they needed 6,000. Journalist Senan Maloney, who had spent more than 30 years researching the sinking of the Titanic, studied photographs taken by the ship's chief electrical engineers before it left the Belfast shipyard. He claims to be able to make out a 30-foot long black mark that stretches across the front right-hand side of the ship, where the iceberg is said to have struck. Speaking in 2017, he stated, "We are looking at the exact area where the icebergs stuck, and we appear to have a weakness or damage to the hull in that specific place before she even left Belfast." Experts subsequently confirmed the marks were likely to have been caused by a fire started in the 3-story high fuel store behind one of the ship's boiler rooms. Officers on board were reportedly under strict instructions from J. Bruce Ismay, president of the company that built the Titanic, not to mention the fire to any of the ship's 2,500 passengers. So the fire had started way before they even set sail, but they weren't allowed. They wanted to keep, I guess, to schedule, to make sure they, whatever it is they were trying to prove. And so they went on sailing, even though the fire began way before they set sail. Mr. Maloney claims this accident was the catalyst to a perfect storm of factors that caused the ship to sink. He added, the official Titanic inquiry branded the sinking as an act of God. This isn't a simple story of colliding with an iceberg and sinking. It's a perfect storm of extraordinary factors coming together: fire, ice, and criminal negligence. 3 things. So the fire was known about, but it was what? Downplayed. It really, damn it. She should have never have been put to sea. A fire began in one of the Titanic's coal bunker approximately 7 days prior to the ship's departure and continued to burn for several days into her voyage. Fires occur frequently aboard steamships due to spontaneous combustion of the coal. So they're saying that's the norm. So this is an image, as you can see, from the National Geographic. This is what it looks like now, sitting on the floor of the Atlantic. And another close-up shot of how it looks. And so that brings us, so what I want to do at this point is to run a short video on what they think actually happened. And so we've got some time to watch this video. So let's go there now. They said there are 10 mistakes that actually took place. So I'm going there to that video. Then I'm going to share my screen again as soon as I get it up and running. So bear with me, let me get prepared for that. And then let me.
Many people don't know this, but if you qualify for this new offer through
So there's a commercial coming on.
Energy, you could get paid over $2,500.
So let me see. I don't know why it's hesitating, but okay, what's going on? I don't know if it's the bandwidth or what. Let's see what happened. Can anyone hear?
On the 20th of September, 1911,
Yes, we can hear
Titanic's
Teresa.
the Olympic was steaming down the Solent.
The Olympic is about to set off for her 5th voyage across the Atlantic, and she's sailing through the Solent parallel to a Navy warship called HMS Hawke.
And they were having a bit of a race, so there was a bit of fun going on between the two ships.
Due to the restricted channel, the Olympic tried to maneuver out of the way of the Hawke, but it was misjudged.
The Olympic effectively cuts up the Hawke, and he couldn't stop a collision.
The Olympic, like the Titanic, featured a series of internal bulkheads dividing the ship into watertight compartments. Even though the warship had punched a hole in her side, The bulkhead compartments prevented water from flooding the whole ship, allowing her to stay afloat.
I think the spectacular survival of the Olympic from the Hawke collision planted a dangerous idea in people's minds.
If a warship can take you on and you can just sail home again and get fixed, then it's giving people the wrong idea.
Many would have thought, well, that really does make the ship relatively unsinkable. Invariably, most captains operating on a transatlantic voyage will want to go as fast as possible in the early part of the voyage to have something in hand in case they encounter fog. Fog is very prevalent on the North Atlantic, and it generally means you have to slow down. So by going faster at the beginning, you have something in hand just in case you meet the unexpected fog.
Smith would not have been unduly worried by the iceberg risk. 7 months earlier, he'd been captain of the Olympic when she survived a serious collision.
If you are Smith and you have captained Olympic and she's survived being rammed by a scary-looking spike on the front of a Royal Naval vessel, then you are not going to be that concerned about what a little iceberg might do to you. Because in your mind, if there's a big iceberg, your people are going to see it and steer away from it.
No doubt the perceived risk of striking an iceberg was so small that it was discounted. But there was the very real risk. If the ship arrived late in New York, there would be a lot of adverse publicity.
Titanic's fireman revealed that a fire had taken hold in the coal bunker in Boiler Room 5.
The fire had been going since Belfast, when Titanic would have sailed with a skeleton crew round to Southampton to make the voyage.
So when the Titanic left Southampton, the fire was already there?
The 3-story high bunker was only finally emptied on Saturday the 13th of April, 1 day before the collision.
Fire was burning for something in the region of about 10 days. It took that long to actually empty the bunker.
The sheet of steel that formed the bunker's rear wall did another critical job. It was part of a watertight bulkhead, the safety feature specifically designed to stop the ship from flooding if she got a hole in the hull.
What 2 of the surviving firemen actually said was that once the coal was taken out of bunker number 5, that you could see how the bunker had warped because of the continued heat it had been exposed to.
So the warping of the steel plates may have weakened one of Titanic's vital watertight bulkheads.
We know from the inquiry into the Titanic disaster that the intense heat of the bunker fire on the Titanic had actually deflected the metal of the hull. And this meant that there was no longer a perfect seal, and in fact the fire-damaged plates in the bulkhead may have been weeping about 1 or 2 buckets of water per hour even before the collision.
To be a wireless operator on one of these big transatlantic liners, you had to be really good at your job. You had to be really swift at sending and receiving Morse code.
As well as incoming passenger messages, the operators received urgent safety alerts from nearby shipping. They were marked with 3 letters to highlight their importance.
MSG, Master Servicegram, was a priority message that was intended to be sent to the captain, and it was used for things such as ice warnings and the like.
Several ice warnings from other ships earlier that day were marked MSG and were duly relayed to Captain Smith.
Captain Smith saw and received all these messages, so he decided to go a little bit further on, about half an hour additional travel before turning west towards New York.
While Smith entertained first-class passengers to a 10-course dinner featuring oysters and filet mignon, in the Marconi room, the messages were piling up. At 9:52 p.m., another ice warning arrived. This one from the SS Masaba, a few hours ahead of the Titanic, heading for New York on almost exactly the same course.
So much heavy pack ice and a great number of large icebergs, also field ice.
It was a clear warning that Titanic's new route would take her straight into an ice field bristling with giant bergs. But the message never reached Captain Smith.
The problem with the Masaba message is that there was no MSG prefix.
Almost an hour later, Titanic received an even starker warning from a ship just 10 miles away. But again, the 3 critical letters, MSG, were missing.
At 10:30 p.m. on the night the Titanic sank, so only an hour before the collision, a vital message came in from the nearby Californian, who radioed the Titanic to say that they were stopped and surrounded by ice. Now, unfortunately, right at the moment that it arrived, the wireless operators on the Titanic were really busy doing what's called working Cape Race.
Titanic was trying to communicate with Newfoundland over 400 miles away, so it would have had its radio set switched on to a very high level. The Californian, fairly close to the Titanic, when it sent out the message to the ship, it would have come through extremely loud.
It nearly blasted their ears off. So the Titanic replied, "Keep out, old man," which meant, "Please be quiet, we're busy." And sadly, with that, the operator on the Californian went to bed.
Try this strange 10-second technique
Let me get rid of this commercial.
tonight to reverse type 2 diabetes. Most people continue to take blood sugar medications because
something about diabetes. Water here. As the pencil is behind it, what you can start to see is the different shapes that are being made. And that's simply because light is bending according to the density of the water behind it. And this was the same the night the Titanic sank, because the air was different densities and therefore the light was bending. Everyone has heard of a desert mirage. Well, this actually created what we call a miraging haze at the horizon behind the iceberg. So in effect, the haze on the distant horizon actually camouflaged the iceberg in the near ground.
Lookouts Fred Fleet and Reginald Lee have no idea that they are staring into an optical illusion.
If they'd had binoculars, theoretically, they could have seen that base of the berg a little bit earlier, and those few seconds could have been crucial for Titanic.
Titanic's central propeller gives its rudder more power to change direction, but only when it's rotating.
Crucially, when the order was given to stop the engines and then latterly reverse them, the center propeller would have been stopped.
Cutting power to the central propeller would have stopped it pushing water across the rudder for a few crucial seconds.
We're talking about a marginal situation here. And perhaps the rudder, working a few percentage points more efficiently, may have swung round just a little bit more to actually miss the iceberg.
Instead, Titanic struck the giant berg.
A rivet is a way of fastening two sheets of metal together. You would take this rivet and heat it up and then put it in through a hole that was punched through the two pieces of metal that are lined up on top of each other. And the rivet is put in through that hole and then hammered at the flat end, and that deforms the flat end into another head and fastens these two pieces of metal together.
These rivets hold up well under normal circumstances, but the North Atlantic was unusually cold that night.
Because Titanic was cutting through smooth, icy waters, her hull would have actually been below freezing at the time of the collision.
But that's not all. High-quality steel rivets could only be inserted using a bulky hydraulic machine, which in the bow section was a challenge.
The hydraulic riveter was a very, very large, unwieldy piece of equipment. Where the hydraulic riveter was not so efficient was in the parts which are not straight, the turn of the bilge, or in the bow of the ship, where the hull is more angled. As a result, you had to use manual riveting crews there.
But steel rivets required too much force to be hammered in by hand. So the plates of the ship's bow section had to be fixed together by rivets made not of steel, but iron. And iron had significant drawbacks.
Wrought iron is not quite as versatile as steel, and when it's made in the smelting process, it produces a byproduct called slag, which is just all the stuff in the ore that you don't really want in your iron.
The slag in the rivets can make them even more prone to fracture when struck by a heavy force in low temperatures.
As the iceberg hits the Titanic, that force and that impact has to be absorbed, it has to go somewhere, and it's going to impact the weakest sections of the ship that it's hitting, and those are along the seams, along the rivets. So the ship basically gets unzipped and water floods in, and we know what happens after that.
After the collision, the Titanic came to a stop, and people wondered what had happened. So their natural reaction was to open the portholes and have a look.
As the ship's fate became clear, the crew ordered passengers up on deck, ready for evacuation.
And then, when they went up to the lifeboats, they left the portholes open. As Titanic's passenger accommodation began to dip under the Atlantic, the open portholes meant that water flooded in at a much greater rate. In fact, 12 open portholes would have doubled the iceberg damage to Titanic. And of course, there were hundreds of portholes in Titanic's bow.
Standing an average of 12 meters high, the bulkheads weren't tall enough to reach the passenger deck level. A deliberate choice by Titanic's designers. Once the water reaches the top of the bulkheads, they become useless. Water spills over them, flooding all the compartments, and rampages unchecked through the public spaces above. It's the final straw. Titanic's bows dip below the surface, hoisting her stern high in the air.
In the final moments, there were thunderous crashes as the steel was heard down below to be breaking apart at the keel level. And then higher up, there was almost a stampede of passengers towards the stern of the ship.
She rises so high in the water and then she seems to right herself again, and people think they're saved. Everything might be all right briefly, but all that is the stern snapping off and falling back down. You have all-out chaos in the final death throes.
The lights went out, and then the ship bobbed for a bit, and then disappeared forever.
The Titanic's foremost bow section was a collision bulkhead. Like the crumple zone in a modern car, it was designed to absorb the worst of a head-on impact, protecting the integrity of the compartments behind and reducing the inflow of water. Scraping the underside of the ship along the iceberg arguably caused more structural damage than a head-on crash. But Murdoch could never have made that call.
Okay, so now you have an idea of what actually took place.
Titlemax offers two ways to get it. Get cash using your car title. Go to titlemax.com, enter the car year, make, model. See how much you can get. Titlemax also offers an unsecured loan. No title required. Check out.
Was that the first time that ship had sailed? I mean,
yeah, they just it was
the first day that they put it out to be used. This happens.
Yes, well, they said, if you looked at earlier, I mentioned that, and they also said it in the video, it had gone out it meant from one port to another port to pick up passengers. So with it, so it did journey. It went from Southampton, which is on the coast of England, to Belfast, which is on the coast of Ireland. So it did travel for a day with just the crew members to pick up the passengers.
Oh.
So it had
well, the trip they were going, when they went to pick up the passengers, were they going somewhere else other than,
Well, they stopped in France, and Queenstown, Ireland, 2 other places. Then they went on, then they left from there afterwards and then hit the Atlantic to head in for New York.
Okay. That was their normal route then, that they would normally go
That
through.
was the route that was set in, but that was that ship, that the Titanic was designed for that kind of luxury, to offer the wealthy, to make money. And that was the first time it's setting sail for New York. The very first time.
Oh, okay.
It set sail for New York.
Well, Teresa, it was alleged that before they even set off to pick up the passengers, they only had 20 lifeboats, which only accommodated like 1,300 people. They had like 2,000 plus people there. So they already knew before they left, they didn't have lifeboats to accommodate the lives of the people on board.
Well, I'm 100%, but look, remember what they said, the engineer said, it is unsinkable.
Yeah,
Not
right.
even God. Yeah, not even God could sink it. So that's how confident they were.
Well, I learned a lot. Thank you so much, because I didn't know anything about that fire.
They didn't show that in the movie.
Yeah, that's the part they didn't show. Yeah, in the movie.
No, they didn't. They didn't. They focused on them getting notices from other ships and ignoring them. I don't know what the captain was up to, but I got tickled when this rich guy decided to get all dolled up, because one of the scenes they play up, which probably didn't happen, but was for the band to come up on the deck and play music as people tried to save their lives. That was hilarious.
That was. It was.
I don't think I would have been in the mood for too much music at that point.
Yes.
Well, music's supposed to be calming, I guess.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I'd have been a wreck, because I'm somebody that could drown in the bathtub, so I'm just saying. There was a 1953 movie, and I remember that for years because one of my favorite actresses, Barbara Stanwyck, was in it. And that was the marker for a good movie about the Titanic. But James Cameron showed us so much more. And he also showed us a lot of the current situations in the film of where the Titanic is and going into the ship underwater and showing us that perspective, because you didn't see any of that in the 1950-something film. I don't think they had the technology to do that in the 50s.
Which was the first film of it?
The first major motion picture. There's a lot of films on the Titanic, but the first major motion picture was 1953 with Barbara Stanwyck.
Oh, in 53, that was the first one.
And then this final one in 97.
Yes. But I also found it interesting, Teresa, I also found it interesting is how they showed people in that big broken out space on the one of the vessels that they thought would make it unsinkable. You know, where they had the compartments, and they were showing us or telling us just now how that fire going for so long compromised what they thought would make it indispensable, impenetrable.
Right, exactly. And the fact that it was hit the day before or days before. So they that the fact that it survived that back then, they were thinking, oh no, nothing's going to ever destroy the ship.
Right.
And they became overly confident about, and that's where they thought they were God. That's my saying. I'm not saying.
I hear what you're saying. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Teresa.
It's nice to
Oh,
hear.
yes.
Again, hi, Dickie.
Since it was my idea for the Titanic, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, and you did a wonderful job. So now we'll split the money. You get 25, I get 25. But you know what? You did such a good job. I'm gonna let you have it.
So who's paying up?
Yeah, she could have got a fourth because remember, we had to pay her for narrating too. So she gets 2/3 and you get one.
Right. That was very good. I enjoyed that.
Well done.
You did a good job.
So
Yes,
me,
it was very
I learned
very
something
good.
new. Mhm.
And I was going to say
Yeah.
there are a number of TV movies made on the Titanic because one had Victor from The Young and the Restless, I remember, came on television. It was a made for TV movie.
Yeah.
So there have been so many movies, you know, in the movie theater and the TV on the Titanic.
There's all kinds of documentaries too.
Right.
Yes.
Did any of them in the movies reveal the fire that was occurring?
Not in the 2 versions that I saw.
No, they covered that up.
Another cover. Look, another cover up. That was the early water. That's really Watergate.
Yep. Watergate. I love it. Yep. So I'm glad that I was given this opportunity to do this research because I learned some more.
Yes, I did too.
Yeah. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, how you doing?
How are you?
today?
Are you one of our newcomers?
Yeah, I'm telling
Nice
you,
to
I'm a
see
latecomer. I was trying to figure things out. I finally got on page.
But it's lovely to have you on board.
Well, thank you.
See,
And
see
you
what
did
we
such
do
a
on-
lovely job. Yeah.
We do on Tuesdays. That's what we do. We break away from the tech part, and on Tuesday we do something light.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's nice.
Yes, so keep
Appreciate
coming on Tuesdays. There'll be something, always something of interest. Now, I did want to show that movie, but I prepared it last night and it wasn't showing on the screen. Even though I rented it and said I was going to show it today, Gotta Dance, the one that Yolanda Lies wanted me to show. So I have to find a way to show it in June.
Okay.
Well, we'll be looking forward to it.
Yeah. I did get some, I did find some clippings of it on YouTube. And so you have an idea of what it's really, what is
My
it?
favorite source.
YouTube, oh yeah, that's where I
Mine
go.
too.
Yes, that's where I go when I want to learn something new.
Yes.
I go to YouTube and it will teach you any and everything. Anything you want to know.
Absolutely. That's my new teacher.
Yep. Actually, when I was in school and I couldn't find answers, I went to YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah, well, see, I'm much older than you, Teresa, so there was no you or two when I was going to school.
You or two. I like that one. So
yeah,
hopefully,
I've learned how to have my ring set up. It's just a plethora of stuff I've learned to do when, especially when you know you're having contractors come in to do something and you do your research, you're like, oh no, now you need to look at the thingamabob because that's not right. You can get them straight. You can act like an expert even though you're not.
It's all in what you know.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is the greatest gift to man.
Power.
Yes.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Teresa, did you find out about the transportation?
No, tomorrow, Thursday is when it's all going to happen.
Oh, so you called and talked to them?
Well, I didn't call, I emailed. Hold on a minute. I wanted to show you all a minute, just a clip of what this movie is about so you'll know. So
okay.
Let me share the screen. See.
Oh, Teresa, I had a distraction.
Okay.
So is the bottom line that the Titanic was not seaworthy because of mechanical problems?
Because it already had fire blazing for 10 days prior to sail.
Would you repeat what you just said?
They already had a fire. Fire was already
already in the process when they took sail.
Oh, I see.
Which weakened the material. Like she said, the iron was weakened by this fire, continuous fire.
And that fire started before they disembarked, before they took off?
Yeah, before they embarked, yes. Before the passengers came on board.
Wow.
So Teresa, do you think a lot of food they thought was barbecue?
So that was the same day they were leaving, or you see a few days before?
What,
10
the fire?
days.
The fire,
10
yes.
days. 10
10
days.
days.
10 days
Oh,
the
10
fire
days.
was occurring.
10 days.
10 days, yes.
It's
Oh, they
amazing.
didn't even
nobody
try to
check.
fix it. They didn't even try to fix it. That's crazy.
Well, they didn't want to miss their deadline for New York. They wanted
They didn't want to miss their money.
Okay.
And the documentary said that was not an unusual occurrence. So I guess they thought they could contain it. But after 10 days, hello.
Yep, it weakened the vessel material. That's what it did. It weakened. So when it hit the iceberg, it had nothing really to support it because the metal was already weakened.
And it didn't monitor their communications.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in other words, they can't blame it on the iceberg because that iceberg wouldn't have mattered if everything else was in place. They wouldn't have had that problem. Is that correct?
Well, that's where I am.
They called it a perfect storm. In other words, all the things that shouldn't have gone wrong did, including the iceberg put a lid on the top.
Right. It was the ice, the fire, and then saying it's unsinkable.
and saying what? What did you say, Teresa?
That it's unsinkable. Not even God could sink it.
I know. But what about lawsuits afterwards? Were there a multitude of lawsuits?
Didn't read of any. I didn't see any.
I don't think it was nobody left to file a lawsuit.
Well,
no, I meant the families, families of lost ones.
Nowadays, the families would do it. Didn't matter.
They had survivors. There were survivors.
Mm-hmm.
But as usual throughout history on the Titanic, just like everything else, the workers don't get a chance to get on the lifeboats. They know they're going to die.
So what about in the movie, they showed where the third class people were locked down in the basement part and they couldn't get out. I wonder how many, did they discriminate during that time or what? I mean, actuality.
Of course.
That's why I find it up in the bottom.
There was a big Irish crew and they were like the Negroes back then. So they got very little or no privileges.
So most of the people got killed with them.
Right.
I think it was more of them too as well.
And then when they got to the United States, too many of the Irish people became very prejudiced against Black people. The police in New York, the people in West Virginia and Kentucky who kept the miners from forming a union, who tried to keep them from forming a union. They have a history. The riots in New York, Irish people, they were discriminated against. You would think they'd be more sensitive to other people, but that's not how history works. Throughout history, just
well, who was in the bottom man in the cold? That's what I want to know.
The Irish.
The Irish was keeping them from forming a union.
They should have known about the fire.
The Blacks and Hungarians and Italians were doing the coal in West Virginia, Kentucky. But the Irish were on the boats, the Titanic and things like that.
They're the ones they're on poverty, most of the crew as well.
I just found something on Google. It said that hundreds of survivors, families, and victims and owners cargo filed claim against White Star Line for loss of life, property, and for injuries sustained. The claims total, and this is meager, but a big number then, 16.4 million.
Wow, and that's back in that time?
Yeah, back in 1912.
So then, okay, and that would be like close to what now?
A gazillion dollars.
Yes, that would be. So then they did have lawsuits.
Yeah, didn't know that.
See, that didn't show up. That didn't even show up in my research. Any of the, and I would say I went to at least 15 different websites getting data, putting it.
Yeah, this is it says docteach.org is this source.
Oh, Teach. Okay.
I mean, it just pulled up on Google. I didn't do any special search for this one. I just got lucky today.
How interesting. Well, I just know I would never ever say anything such as where God is concerned. That's why.
Smart move, Teresa. Smart move.
Because this proves to you, you don't go there. You just don't go there. Unless you're.
Well, they got a lot of big ships out there today in the sea.
Yeah.
Doing pretty well.
Well, the thing is, they had a lot of warnings, you know, to stop it. So it's not like they just got up that morning and something was happening all of a sudden. But I mean, all this stuff was a buildup.
Ignored.
Ignored. It was ignored. Yes.
Because of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to spend any money. They want to.
I don't know. We've had a couple of disasters. You remember that captain that got off that ship that was sinking and went home to his mama and left people abandoned?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Even though now there's so many rules and regulations before a ship can get in the water, inspections. You know how we do those drills before cruises? There's so many guidelines in place now. But I know one thing, that captain got his butt off that boat before it sank and didn't worry about the passengers.
What?
This was in Italy.
I think they fired him or got rid of him. I think.
Well, he should have been fired in jail.
Or he went to court or something. I don't know.
He should have been sent to jail.
He should
Leaving
have.
those people stranded. I think it was the Costa. What's the name of the ship line?
I think it was
like
the
that.
Concordia. Concordia.
I think, let's see. I'm not sure about the name, but I remember the story and I kept saying, oh my gosh, where could he go live after that kind of embarrassment?
Teresa, what is the get ready on the screen?
Oh, I was about to show you all a clip of what I'm going to try to show at some point. So let me share it and then we'll call it a day. So let's go there. So this is what DACO wants me to share with you all at some point, as soon as I get the, let's see if I can get it going. Okay, so why wouldn't it go? Uh-oh, what happened there?
Turning 60, people think it was all over, but it's not all over. It's just the beginning.
Hi everyone, welcome to Nets Basketball. Congratulations on being part of our first ever senior dance team.
Uh-oh, watch out now. I got pants and suits older than them.
What kind of music you're playing? I said, you can't dance to that. Let's go.
If you feel real good.
Come on, a bunch of old folks doing hip hop. Get real.
Yeah, the beat's real hot and
I really let loose. I really kind of did a pole dance.
Today, 65 is the new, what, 45 or 50?
Right.
Well,
It's unbelievable. 50 is 40 and
Right.
60 is 50.
Right.
Is that for us as senior dancers?
Hit it. Give it up.
Ladies and gentlemen, the New Jersey Nets' newest dance team.
Take it to the left.
The New Jersey Nets this week unveiled their new senior dance group. When asked what the group would wear, one member said, depends.
They're tremendous. Senior dancers. They should have worn some shorter skirts, though.
Booty shake.
Do the GD slide, we can rock as one. Now wave your hands like you just don't care. And pump your fists up in the air. Now rock with it. All they just get it right. Everybody's doing it. Gotta dance live.
After all this is over, we go back to our lives, or we can say that we were the originals. Definitely the originals.
So Audrey, you look great. What's going on, Audrey? And it ain't sex.
Break it down now if you're feeling fine. Let your troubles go and free your mind. And now brush it off, lean side to side. Just be yourself. Do the gotta dance live.
So that's it in a nutshell.
That's funny. That's cute.
Yeah. So life isn't over because you become a senior.
I know a lady that her name is Wanda Newman, and she's a member of what's called the Wisdoms, and it's the same group, similar to this group.
Oh, it's
They
called
call them the Wisdoms. They're the what do you call them? What do you call them? What did you call these dancers? What do you call them?
You talking about the steppers? You talking about the steppers? They step?
They call, yes, but they cheerlead. Yeah, they were
Cheerleaders?
cheerleaders for the Wizards.
Cheerleaders.
I haven't seen them lately, but Wanda is a member of the Washington Senior Wellness Center. So I thought I would add that in case you all want to see the Wisdoms whenever they. I'm going to check on that, see if they're still dancing. But they probably have new members. They have auditions also, ladies and gentlemen. So check it out.
Well, I let the ladies take care of that.
and men. It doesn't. I don't know about the age limit, but
I saw a man. A man was
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I have 2 left feet, so that wouldn't include me.
They even have the men and cheerleaders. So
Yeah.
male cheerleaders.
Yeah, Donna. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Yeah. Check it out, Donna. You can dance. I've seen you in action.
I would if I hadn't had 2 knee surgeries.
Oh, sorry to hear that. But
That's
this
okay.
was a wonderful.
I can still move.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
I
Yeah,
don't know about all that jumping around though, but I can still move.
yeah. Any bike riders want to join a bicycle group?
That sounds good.
Where would
Yeah,
they
Donna.
meet?
I've heard that before, Donna. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
get the details and share with us. I'd love to pull out my dusty
I have a
Fear
bike.
special.
I have a bike
No,
down
I mean, who would like to be the facilitator for a bicycle group?
Uh-oh.
The person who just offered it.
I don't know. I would rather someone else, but I thought I would bring that up.
How come we
I
can't
have
see
a bike. I have a bike down in my basement for the last 20 years almost, man. I know how to change the tires on it.
Teresa, how come we can't see everyone in the gallery?
Oh,
I haven't. Am
I no longer sharing?
I look terrible.
The what?
You should be able because I'm not sharing
This
anymore.
everyone is turned off their feature.
It's me.
We don't have the video. We don't have our video on.
Oh,
Yeah.
why is that?
When I okay. Well, anyway, I mentioned it about the bicycle group and about the Wizards group, the Wisdoms for the Wizards. But who wants to be the facilitator for the bicycle group? Donna?
No, no, Diane.
Yeah, get back to me when you guys decide.
No, don't wait on me because you're probably waiting for Christmas.
That's why my tires are flat and mine has dust in the basement. So somebody could motivate us.
Hey, that's where mine is, in the basement.
I got a Sears special. Still got that $99 Sears special.
I got a 10-speeder.
Oh wow, you're ahead of me.
Okay, well, who's all for it?
Well, I can't ride a bike.
Who can't ride a bike?
Me.
What?
Is riding the bike like swimming? And once you learn how to swim, you can still ride.
Well, I never
That's
learned
not-
how to. I never
That's
learned.
not true. That's not true. I can swim. I passed the swimming class and I still can't swim. Fear is what does it for me.
Oh, that's what it is.
I never learned to ride a
I don't
bike.
even know if I can balance on a bike now.
Who is that? Oh my goodness.
Who's that? Sandra, Patricia,
Donna.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, if
I
you're
have to do
interested,
I would have to do a dry run.
Yeah, I need some air. I need some air and a prayer, hoping that the air won't leak out of those tires as old as they are. They might be dry rot.
take it to the bike shop.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I have to do. Take mine
I
to the
can
bike
do
shop.
that once you guys decide who's going to be in charge. But I don't feel like a leader for biking.
Well, that would definitely be a
Wayne?
motivator.
How about you, Wayne? Would you like to be in charge?
Oh, well, I'm not riding anymore.
Okay. Well, let me
What,
know.
too far up, Wayne?
Well, I
too
mean,
far off the ground?
yeah, all my legs won't let me do what I like to do, used to do.
Oh,
Oh
well.
yeah, I can attest to that.
Well, let me know. I can take names if you're interested. And maybe we can meet somewhere after we get the bikes in
I'll
order.
give my name. Deborah
Ooh.
Hedge, put me on the list. I'll follow y'all as long as it's somewhere safe and not in Timbuktu.
Well, there's always Gravity Point, right? You can go riding there.
Diane, you can put me on the list. So I can make a try for it.
But you're gonna have to give us a little time to check out our tools, our equipment, and make sure we're up and running.
Call, there's a bike shop on 7th Street Southwest, and I think they show women how to.
She said how to.
Yeah, to check your bike, just,
There is a group of young men in what's the area? Trinidad, that have a bike shop that repairs and do these. It's a business for young African American kids that go in and repair these bikes. So I'm gonna look into the name of that because I remember seeing that on my thread for next door.
And normally places like that probably charge a minimal fee.
Right.
Probably cheaper because of students.
Absolutely.
I'm going to check out this bike shop on 7th Street, but I think the classes were free and they were in the evening. But I need to get the dust off my bike as well.
All right, Diane. Well, we'll check back with one another in a couple of weeks